Choosing the right iPad can be tricky, with options ranging from budget-friendly to ultra-powerful. Which one is the best for you? Today, I'll cover every iPad Apple is currently offering, including some options on the second-hand market, and I'll also explain how to get a later model iPad straight from Apple with warranty and a big discount, even though Apple officially no longer sells them. Let's get started. Let's start with the cheapest iPad, which is just the iPad. It starts at $349 with 64GB of base storage, comes in 3 fancy colors if that matters to you, has an A14 chip and an updated body which features Touch ID in the power button and a landscape front camera, making it perfect for FaceTime calls or any other video calls. It's also got USB-C, which is really helpful because it allows you to expand the storage using a USB-C to an SD card adapter. However, this would only be beneficial for media since you can only install apps on the internal storage. That said, it doesn't have a 128GB version, only a 64 and 256 one, which starts at $499, and at that price point, it's honestly not a great deal. So who is this iPad for? It's mostly for students or for kids. It has a 10.9-inch display, which is enough for writing notes or watching videos. When it comes to color, it only supports sRGB, which isn't terrible by any means, but it's just not fancy enough if you want to stream HDR movies. The display is also not laminated, meaning it has an air gap underneath. This makes writing on it a bit noisier and it will have more reflections and bright light. While we're on the topic of writing, this iPad only supports the Apple Pencil 1 or the new USB-C Apple Pencil, both charged by connecting to the iPad via the USB-C port. They don't attach magnetically, so ergonomics are not the best, and when the pen dies, you'll have to stop using it and wait till it charges. So as I said, this iPad is for students who just need a budget iPad for writing or a cheap entertainment device for the iPad kids out there. Anything more than writing or watching casual videos is going to be too much to ask for it. The speakers and the cameras are not that great, and the chip inside it is already 4 years old, so don't expect too many OS updates after you buy it. It's a good budget iPad, especially if you can get it with a discount, but paying more than $349 for it would be unreasonable. Alright, let's get some more exciting iPads, starting with the iPad mini. The iPad mini has recently got a refresh. Now it has the A17, which is also found in the iPhone 15 Pro, so it supports Apple Intelligence if that matters to you. It's got not so fancy colors, but at least it starts at $128 for the base model, with the price being at $499, which is a bit pricey if you ask me, but it's within reason. Because now the display supports P3 color gamma, which is 26% more color than sRGB in the regular iPad, so if you want to edit media on it, it's gonna be helpful. The display also has an anti-reflective coating. It supports the Apple Pencil Pro, which magnetically attaches to the iPad mini, but it doesn't support the Apple Pencil 2, so if you've got one of those laying around, it's not gonna work. Actually, none of the current selling iPads support the Apple Pencil 2. So if you're planning to upgrade from an older iPad to a currently selling one, you will need to buy a new Apple Pencil, which is the Apple Pencil Pro. So the iPad mini gets a faster chip and a slightly better display, but it's a smaller one at 8.3 inches. It also gets Apple Intelligence, and that's about it. Oh, and by the way, the front-facing camera is located in the portrait orientation, not in the landscape, so it may look weird on video calls. It mainly has to do with the size of the device, nothing you can do about that. So who is it for? At a price hike of $150 over a regular iPad, it's not much of an upgrade, especially considering that it has a smaller battery and smaller speakers due to its size. Yes, it will get more years of iPadOS support, and it allows you to do some kind of professional work on it, like editing photos or videos or even playing video games, but ironically, you would want to do all that on a bigger display, not a smaller one. So the iPad mini I really can't recommend to anyone, especially at this price, unless you're someone who just needs a small iPad, specifically because it's small. So the iPad Air. Great iPad, has an M2 chip, which is worlds faster than the A17 in the iPad mini, is available in 11 and 13 inches, starting at $599 with 128GB of base storage, a much better deal than the iPad mini. It's got a laminated display, anti-reflective coating, P3 color range, landscape camera, still Touch ID, but for some that might be an advantage, supports Apple Pencil Pro, and is generally just a killer iPad for the price. If you're looking to get creative work done, this iPad is for you, is what I wanted to say, but this only applies to the 11-inch base model iPad Air. As soon as you start going up in size or storage, it instantly becomes a bad deal. Not because it's a bad device, but because there's better iPads that you can get for $6 or $7.99, which we'll talk about later. The M2 chip in the iPad Air also has a media engine which helps with editing H.264 video format, so it won't use as many resources, leaving you with more battery life. It's also perfect for editing pictures in Lightroom. The 11-inch size is just enough to do that. You could easily use it for school, watch movies, play games, and edit on this iPad, all without any issues. It doesn't miss on any must-have features, just on luxury features, but those are reserved for the iPad Pro. Overall, a solid iPad for a solid price. Just don't get anything over than the base model, and you'll see why in a second. So, the almighty iPad Pro, starting at $9.99, it's everything you ever wanted, but you don't need it. Let's start with why it's so good though. First of all, the display. It's a double OLED panel that goes up to 120Hz, making its stunning display insanely smooth. And unlike on previous models, this applies to both 11-inch and 13-inch models. It still covers the B3 color palette, but since it's an OLED, the colors are more rich and true to life, especially the blacks. The higher refresh rate is not just for visual pleasure, it also helps with drawing with the Apple Pencil, making the experience like you'd be writing on a paper with a real pen. So if you fall into the category of people who don't notice a difference between 60 and 120Hz, the 120Hz panel still has some benefits besides just visual pleasure. Like for example, games feel more intrusive, iPadOS feels faster, and so on. It's something that once you experience, it's hard to go back, even if you initially didn't see the difference between 60 and 120Hz. Going back to 60Hz will be rough. The screen is also much brighter, almost 2 times as bright as on the iPad Air in the day-to-day usage, and almost 3 times as bright when watching HDR movies. The 1TB version also has an option for a nano-textured display, which completely removes all the glare, but it also reduces the richness of the colors. And by the way, if you're wondering why I'm talking so much about the display, it's because the iPad is kind of the display. It's the most important part of the iPad. And while we're on the topic of a display, I'd also recommend getting the 13-inch, as the size increase makes it noticeably better for doing proper work, like editing videos, for example. I've had both sizes, and while I thought the 11-inch was more than enough, the 13-inch blew me away. The iPad Pro starts at 256, thank God, but it also supports actual USB-C speeds, unlike on previous iPads which just have the USB-C port but run on USB 2.0 speeds. The iPad's Pro Thunderbolt USB-C is 4 times as fast as on the iPad Air, equaling it to 5 GB a second. Also, since it's a Thunderbolt USB-C port, you can hook up the iPad Pro to an external display up to 6K in resolution too. The iPad Pro also features Face ID, 4 speakers, which is twice as many as in every other model, so the sound coming out of it is just insane. It's got LiDAR, its ultra-wide camera can shoot ProRes for whatever reason. It's got a 2TB option, which, if you option, brings the total price of the iPad Pro to $2,500 for the 13-inch model. All these updates make the M4 iPad Pro a portable studio. The screen is perfect for drawing or video photo editing. The Thunderbolt USB-C allows you to edit off external storage, connect the iPad to bigger displays, or just move files faster between systems. The mics are perfect for recording audio, and the speakers are perfect for playback. Watching movies is a blast, and the M4 CPU is capable of anything you could possibly throw at it, although you have to get the 1TB version to get the full version of the M4 CPU. The options under that have one less CPU core, but it's still 1.5 times faster than the M2 and the iPad Air, which will significantly decrease your export times. And by the way, the 1TB version also has double the RAM, but Apple doesn't disclose that. So the iPad Pro is a big improvement in literally every single aspect of the iPad, and it also comes with a much thinner and sleeker design. So this iPad is for you if you want the absolute best of the best, or if you do real work that brings in money, but if any of that were the case, you probably wouldn't be watching this video. So this brings me back to more realistic options. As I said, some iPads Apple is no longer offering because the new models are out, but if you go to Apple's website, scroll all the way down and click on Certified Refurbished and select iPad, You can get all kinds of iPads straight from Apple with the same warranty as on a new device, with a big discount, and with the only exception that these devices were once used as a display model in the Apple Store or returned within a 14-day period or due to a warranty claim, which then they are completely reassembled and resealed by Apple, hence you're getting the same warranty as on a new device, so they're essentially the same thing as a new device. Actually, they're undistinguishable from a new device, and that's the reason you're getting the same warranty as on a new device. Also, as I said, these come with a huge discount, so there is zero risk involved whatsoever. Here we have two iPads that I want to talk about. First, the iPad Air 5th Gen, which is almost the same as the currently selling M2 iPad, but just with an M1 and starting at $449. This is $150 off in comparison to the M2 iPad Air, and all you're missing out on is a 10% performance uplift, which isn't going to be noticeable, especially on an iPad. The M1 was so ahead of its time that years later I'm still using an M1 iPad Pro, and I do all the video editing for this channel on this iPad. Also, I'm doing all the photo editing for professional clients on it, and I have zero complaints regarding the performance. For $499, this iPad is just a steal. Better yet, it even supports Apple Intelligence, because the M1 chip is so good even years later. It supports the regular Apple Pencil too, so you don't have to pay extra for the Apple Pencil Pro. Also, you could get a refurbished Apple Pencil too, which you can do with the Pro since it's the new thing, so you're really saving a ton of money with this iPad. The only downside that I could think of is that it starts at 64GB instead of 128, and the camera is located in the top bezel instead of a landscape, if that even matters to anyone. As for the memory, you can get a 256GB one, and it will still be cheaper than the currently selling Gen with 128. Other than that, it's got all the same options. It's got an M chip, Apple Intelligence, Touch ID, USB-C, magnetically attached Apple Pencil, same warranty, and many more years of OS support. This is truly the go-to budget iPad. If you just need iPad, this is the one that you get. However, what I would recommend is that you get an M1 iPad Pro. The 11-inch M1 iPad Pro is called the 3rd Gen iPad Pro, and the 12.9-inch M1 iPad Pro is called the 5th Gen iPad Pro. Don't ask me why, that's Apple's naming for you. Marketing probably worked overtime on this. So why the M1 iPad Pro? Because it's got all the benefits that come with an iPad Pro, like high refresh rate display, Thunderbolt USB-C, 4 speakers, Face ID, incredible display, and you can get a 12.9-inch model for just $759. That is $550 off in comparison to the currently selling iPad Pro. The differences are the M1 CPU in comparison to the M4, which I have to agree is much faster, but as I said, the performance of the M1 is no joke. I use it to make money and I have no complaints, so just because the M4 is faster, this doesn't make the M1 worse. It's like comparing a BMW against a Ferrari when your goal was to get groceries in the first place. The other difference is that it supports the 2nd Gen Apple Pencil and not the Apple Pencil Pro, but then again they're barely any different, and the 2nd Gen Apple Pencil can be had for much cheaper, so that's a win in my book. The camera is in the top bezel and not in the landscape, and the display is not OLED, it's a mini LED panel and only on the 12.9-inch model. The 11-inch has an LCD display like on any other iPad. The mini LED display in the 12.9-inch is almost as good as the OLED panel in the currently selling iPad Pro. Both of these technologies have their ups and downs. Like for example, OLED will eventually burn in, whereas mini LED doesn't suffer from that, but mini LED suffers from blooming and OLED doesn't. The colors and the blacks are just as good on both. The OLED gets noticeably brighter though, almost twice as bright, but that's a normal use. When it comes to HDR movies, they both get up to 600 nits, so that's the same. Both displays are gorgeous and as color accurate as it gets. In day-to-day real-life usage, you won't notice a difference, except maybe for the brightness if you take your iPad outside and use it under the sun. But for a $550 discount, yes please. I have a few videos on my M1 iPad Pro which you could watch, but I can tell you it's perfect and there's no reason for me to upgrade to the M4 iPad Pro despite me doing professional work on it. If you want to get the 11-inch model, it's gonna have an LCD display, which isn't nearly as good as the mini LED or OLED panels on the bigger iPads, but it's still gonna be a high refresh rate, quality panel, and you can get one for as low as $550. Considering that for this money you can barely get a currently selling iPad Air, which is gonna be worse on literally everything except CPU performance, For this money, this iPad is a steal. So these are the two iPads that give the most value for the money, and if you were to ask me, I'd personally get the 11-inch M1 iPad Pro if the money is tight, or the 12.9-inch M1 iPad Pro for the better panel and bigger display if I had some spare cash. Just please, for the love of God, don't ever buy a refurbished product anywhere other than Apple's official website. They're not gonna be anywhere near as good, they're gonna have worn batteries, scratches, and you might even get scammed. Anything over than Apple's refurbished program is going to be a massive letdown, no matter whether you shop on Amazon or Alibaba. By the way, if you want to know more about Apple's refurbished program, I've got a video on that too. So, to conclude, which iPad is the best for you? Personally, I don't see any point in getting anything else than the refurbished M1 iPads, since these are options straight from Apple with warranty and a big discount. The only exception I would make for the top-of-the-line M4 iPad Pro, since it's the best you can get and some people just want that. I would also recommend the cheapest 10th gen regular iPad if you're a student with limited cash or just need an iPad on a strict budget. Tell me what iPad you're looking to buy and whether this video has helped you decide. Have you ever bought refurbished devices from Apple before? Write everything down in the comments. With that said, thanks for watching and I'll catch you in the next one.